in May, I said, you know what? Maybe I should take care of this multi-times broken nose, right? So I went there, got a CT scan. Takes about 2 minutes, literally. So then me and my old lady were going to go to lunch, right? Get in the car, phone call. It's the doctor. He says, hey, Roy, I think you have a brain tumor.
Welcome to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share. All ideas, thoughts, and statements are those of the guest and the host of Echo Oscar Delta, and not of Navy EOD or Navy as a whole. This episode's sponsors are: the Navy Special Operations Foundation is the only foundation that exists to exclusively serve the men and women and the families of the Navy Special Operations community. NSOF exists to ensure that our operators and their families are provided with all the tools necessary to overcome any challenges they face, and to ensure that they are never alone in the fight. To learn more about the organization, request support, or make donations, please visit nsof.org. Today we have Roy Sedano.
Sedano, yeah.
Oh man, I already messed it up.
It's all good. It's everywhere.
You know what's funny is literally as I'm doing this, like if I have it written down, I'm okay. But in my head, as we've been talking, for a little while, which has been awesome, by the way, I'm literally like thinking, don't say it wrong, right? And like remember how you're saying it. And yeah, it's that thing, I'm gonna use the excuse. I don't have as good a one, but use the excuse that a few too close here and there on the blast, but terrible. But yeah, so did a little over 23 years, retired as a senior chief in EOD, and deployed Iraq, Afghanistan, all over Africa. Just had a good 23 years.
Sure did.
Appreciate you coming on and talking, man.
No problem. This is great, especially fantastic timing.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, I'm excited for a couple of reasons. One, I just like talking to guys, but then, we'll get into it, but you got some good stuff to like kind of give awareness to some things and try to prep people on some extra steps to kind of take and, try and help yourself out. 'Cause man, as we find out, we help each other out here and there, but really we gotta own it on ourselves, right?
Absolutely.
Like, we're the ones that care the most about ourselves.
Absolutely.
So I guess to start, how'd you find EOD? Did you do EOD the whole time?
No, I did not actually. I was we had a bonfire was about a year ago here at 32nd Street. It was the Bonham Machard.
Okay.
So when I left for the Navy, I just kind of left one day. I didn't have an idea. I was signed up for a university here in San Diego, and I was just kind of sat on the roof one night and I was like, yeah, I'm gonna go sign up for the Navy, and I left. And he said, these are the choices. I picked aviation ordnanceman, so I was a plank owner on the Bonham Machard, the bonfire that we had last year. And I was like, oh man. So I saw EOD guys on there, and I was like, man, what's this? And I never had heard about it. So I started, where I'd pass the chief of the team in the hallways and have to push out some push-ups and stuff like that. And I was like, this is pretty cool. So I put in my package, did the screening in Bahrain as we stopped there, and then went down to dive school and everything after that. And I was in EOD the rest of the time. Never stepped foot on another ship, I don't believe, which was fantastic. Yeah. But yeah, it was great. It was great. And then retirement almost 3 years ago. Here in January, it'll be 3 years, which has been incredible, and we'll talk about it. Yeah. The different things that happen to us and different directions we can go once retired. But it's been incredible.
Nice, man. So by the time you came in, that 9/11 had already happened, came in, but came into EOD.
Yes.
9/11 had already happened.
Yeah.
So after you got through school, you did pretty much all your time on the West Coast? Or
yes.
You were overseas for a little bit, right?
So yeah, after school, I went down to Moby Unit 8, which was in SIG at the time.
Yep.
And then, yes, after that, I spent, I want to say 16 years on the West Coast, which was, it's kind of a good thing that all the units kind of went to the same locations on the East Coast and West Coast now.
Yeah.
I know it's nice to go different places, but overall, you're able to stay in one place. Kids are able to stay in the same schools and that like that, and that was very very beneficial for my kids.
Nice. When you came in, going to your first deployments, so one of the things that I think is interesting, and I know it's kind of the same question I ask every time, but I enjoy the answers for it. Going through school, doing that training, then doing your first workup, doing that training, and then deploying for the first time. All your training, did it match what you ended up doing on deployment?
So my first one was in Camp Lemonnier in Djibouti.
Yeah.
It was a lot smaller than it is now. This big old base now. We in SIG at the time, we stayed in SIG for this train up, and it was active in some ways, but not active in just UXO kind of stuff. I would say for the most part.
Yep.
So I would say at that time the training was excellent. I got back and not too much longer after. Got asked to go go on a team that needed some folks, and it was to go to Iraq. Okay. And so at that time, I'll never forget, the training was interesting because it was kind of sort of coming up with stuff even during the train up, because it was a time where we weren't getting too many reports back and things like that. And so honestly, we hit the ground in Baghdad and it was like boom, right off the bat. Doing missions. And what I found interesting was that as we met up with different folks, whether they were different services, but definitely different Navy folks that were in different locations, that we all learned and came up with certain ways to do things. Like, as many people know, the way we drove the robots, or before we had robots even, what were we doing? It was quite interesting that we all kind of came up with the same sort of way of doing things. Quite interesting.
Yeah, the type, I mentioned it a few times in past episodes talking, and it's interesting because the more I talked about things, I used to say, because I used to hear it this way, that like, and EOD has like turned us into this, that, or the other, right? And in some instances that's the case, but the type of people, this is more the theory that I submit to now, is the type of people that come into EOD are, we problem solve similar ways. We don't always do it the same exact way, but similar ways. So it makes sense that, you may be in different areas, trained at different mobile units, and not necessarily talking beforehand, but when you meet up in country, it turns out you're doing similar ways of solving the problems.
Absolutely. That was one of the most interesting things that I found early on was exactly that.
Yeah. Getting into some of the, the CENTCOM deployment side, I'm sure coming in, that's kind of what you were looking for. Most of us were.
Yeah. I'll never forget, 9/11, I was on the ship and we didn't know what was going on, what had happened. And we were in the yard. So we had most folks at schools. And so, like, my thing, I was an AO, so we, on that type of class of ship, we would also have the armory. So I'll never forget having to go get all 4 50 cals and put them on all four corners of the ship. And then almost, I hate to say this, but like, there were police boats that didn't have their lights on. They'd get close to the ship. It was like, permission to fire, It's just like, but yes, absolutely. So once I got into EOD and going through school, all of us were talking about that. I'm sure there's many colleagues and friends that remember that. It's like, can't wait to go here. Which, honestly, that was the reason I went to Mobile Unit 8, because at the time it was the most deploying unit, but it was all over Europe. Yeah. And so we get into Iraq a little bit later than everybody else because we were responsible for EUCOM at the time. So it's quite interesting.
Yeah, it is interesting how the moment, and we're getting back to it a little more, but the mobile units all had kind of their area of responsibility. Yes. And then over the years when they just needed, okay, I need more and more and more. And then basically everybody was just going to Iraq. How was, working in Iraq?
I think for a lot of us, it was quite interesting. And I'm sure all of us can relate to this, where when we're in the moment, we're in the moment. Yeah. And I would say we're in the moment till we're for real not. Either we decide on a different career path or we retire. Mm-hmm. A lot of things, as I'll talk about later, kind of sort of go They come out and you go, what do you do with my hands?
Yeah.
But working in Iraq was quite interesting because it was also new.
Yeah.
That after those first deployments, you talked to folks you looked up to, but hadn't done that type of deployment yet. And it was even weird where they're like, well, what about this? And what about this? And you're like, well, we kind of just did this. And we did, it was very interesting. But I think that those days and days in the future, I hope it's nothing significant, but it shows the type of people we have in this community that overall, that we're problem solvers.
Yeah.
And now being a civilian that uses times like 10 a.m. instead of 1000 because I've practiced this to become your own self again. It's a good thing. We're also ourselves on the job, but that's what I noticed the most, that we're problem solvers. And one of the best things about that is even once we leave being on the job within EOD, it's amazing what we can do with those qualities on the civilian life. Not even in areas that are related to EOD. Because for years we talk about, I'm going to do this UXO company or whatever, right? And it can totally be done. Don't get me wrong. But it's really nice to see that you can sit and speak in front of anybody, maybe offering your job or doing a deal with them, that you're just like, wow, I've done bigger speeches to more folks in bigger things. This thing's going to explode. Get X,
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. It's something I really hope that everybody understands, that whatever, all the things you're doing while you're in, once you retire or make take another path, you can do anything, truly.
Yeah. That's an interesting point, bringing up the, specifically speaking. And, I know a lot of people are nervous about, going in for a job interview and this and that. And, even with what they say, so a lot of our training, right, getting ready to go to war is almost like a desensitized, right? You get stressed out so that you learn how to handle stress. And it's not the same exact way, but then you get put in a position where now you're in a situation like everything is chaotic, and you're like, okay, wait, just bring it back. I remember this scenario, right? I remember being in this stressful situation. You can do this. Okay, cool. And then you move forward using the when you get out, and obviously I haven't gotten there yet, but
right.
what we were talking about earlier, and bringing this up now, I go back to, I'm sure the first few times when I have to go to do a job interview, right? I'm sure that stress is going to start to come in, but then remember back, like, dude, you briefed admirals all the time. You briefed captains, like, go back, make sure you're prepared, and then just, all right, calm down and move forward.
You're absolutely correct. One of the biggest things that I've noticed, and I'm just talking post EOD career, is that part.
Yeah.
As a kid, I was pretty shy and stuff, and over the years of doing that job and realizing the things that we know that we have good problem solving techniques is kind of why we just some way found our position, our spot, if you will, here within that community, right? Is that now post, you just know it. And that's what I want everybody to know is you have it. And once you get out and you're doing different things, do not be shy. You weren't before.
Yeah.
Don't be now. Nothing has changed. Put the hands somewhere.
Yeah.
Right?
That's funny. It's true. It's true. So are there any memorable experiences while you were in that you want to share?
Let me think about this. So I would definitely say, getting out to those, doing the first real devices for the first time. And like you mentioned before when we were talking about, and just a little bit ago, of just thinking about the problem and then calming down, that was probably, honestly, my most memorable experience was going, there it is, and just looking at the end and kind of backtracking to where I'm at now as the problem solving. And I never forgot that. Honestly, it helped in other deployments. It helped in how to train guys. It helped a lot in that. I would say that's probably, there's lots of great memories, but that's probably the most memorable, is just going, this is real now.
Yeah.
This is not when I was on the ship going, oh, I want to be EOD. That looks so cool. Those dudes get to do whatever they want. It was real now.
Yeah.
And I don't think I ever forgot that. I think that helped train myself, train my teams at the training unit. I really think that feeling that you get when that happens really did that.
Yeah.
So I would say that was.
That's it's, I think too, a lot of times, you know, you mentioned when you were on the ship before you came in, you're like, oh, dude, those dudes get to do whatever they want, right? And you know, we don't quite get to do whatever we want. It's close, but not quite. But it's interesting. The leeway we get is because of those things that we're asked to do, right? Like when you're going to ask somebody to go down on an IED and take care of it, I feel like you're kind of owed a little bit of leeway here and there, right?
That you're right. That actually brings up a good memory. I remember a rocket came in between two tents of some Army unit, and their colonel, like full bird colonel, I said I needed something to one of his guys. I needed some rebar. You know, some guys know about this. Like, you need to see how deep this hole goes so we know what to do, right? And who comes back with the rebar? The colonel.
Yeah.
He's like, will this work? And I was like, yeah, it will. Thanks, sir. You know, and that goes back to what you're saying is folks know, I don't want to do that. These guys will do it. So that was also quite interesting.
That's awesome. Yeah, that is not what you expect. You expect the colonel to be like, you, E1, go get me my thing.
That's right.
You know, but that's awesome. Overseas versus, the overseas mobile units versus the stateside mobile units. Did you notice a difference in how close people were?
Yes. I'll be honest. And yes, I never felt a mobile unit as close as we were in SIG, which is now in Spain. And from everything I've heard, same as far as that closeness. And I believe that one of the reasons was your sponsor was way different overseas. So from step one, they got to show you, hey, you got to get a rent-a-car. You got to get this apartment you can use for a while you look. This part of the city, this part of the city. And also, we were all going through that same experience.
Yeah.
In Italy, I got to be honest, the culture was pretty amazing because, and I do believe this. So you get this vibe and you learn that in Italy, family's first.
Yeah.
And as a mobile unit, we should be a family. Mm-hmm. We almost need to be because of things, the potential things that could happen.
Right.
And we've all seen it where we do become a family, helping family members, right? So in Italy, that kind of passed on to the mobile unit. So it was pretty incredible how it was. And I that's what I would have to say.
Yeah.
Stateside mobile units were great too. But I noticed more stateside that's kind of like when work's done, peace out, off I go, right? Which is all good too, and I understand that as well because I've done them and I've done it, right? But that was the interesting part about the overseas mobile units. You'd have folks help you with your family stuff when you're not there.
Yeah,
I'll never forget in Sicily, we had this just downpour that hadn't happened, I don't know, 100 years or whatever, right? Well, at the housing unit I just moved to because we were gone all the time, so it flooded. So me and a couple dudes went straight away to the unit and got a Mark V, right? Got a Humvee Mark V, and we started getting all the folks that we knew of, pregnant wives. If they were not there, we started helping everybody we could, getting them out. It was family.
Yeah,
you know what I mean, it was very interesting.
Yeah, my first 5.5 years was in Guam, and I would say the same thing. Like when I hear stories about how close people were and the way the mobile unit, mobile unit 8 works, I think that's kind of how mobile unit 5 was too. And it's interesting because I wanted to get away from that so much when I came to the States. I was like, dude, I'm over this, And like 2 years after being here, I was like, I kind of miss that,
That's right. That's right.
It is, I would describe it as it's what I thought, like being at the overseas mobile units is what I thought EOD all over was going to be.
Absolutely.
And I agree. Like you get stateside and you just have so many options.
Yep.
You can, and, especially in like San Diego, to live in a place that you can afford Sometimes you
very
have to
true.
get pretty far away if you have a
That
family.
is very true.
So, I was talking with somebody probably about a month ago and talking about that. You can literally have somebody an hour, like from the mole unit,
Yes.
an hour north, and then somebody's an hour east.
Mm-hmm.
But to get to their house, it's an hour and 45 minutes just house to house,
Mm-hmm.
and like, yeah, it's just harder. It's harder
sure
to be
is.
as close.
It sure is. It definitely is. You're right about that.
Yeah. But, when things need to get done and especially when, bad things happen, we do kind of tend to bond together and
True.
get it done. But,
Very true.
I know, so I reach out to you, on LinkedIn. And I was a little bit hesitant at first cause you're never quite sure, but I was like, man, he's putting this out there and I'm interested in it. I know a lot of people, there's a lot to be learned by it. So I was like, I think he's okay with it. So I reached out and you wanted to bring up some stuff. So, I want to kind of get into that, right? So since you've gotten out, you've had a little bit going on here and there.
Yeah.
If you want to describe kind of what's going on and yeah.
No, sure thing. So I'll take it back to retirement day, which was during COVID, right? So no retirement ceremony, no, your kids, and especially in this community and the types of trips that we do, oh man, they go through so much. Yeah. So that was a big, sort of like, that hurt a little bit, but in some ways it was kind of nice to retire, boom, just like that.
Yeah.
A lot of years, a lot of, trips. And so I did just like we all do. And I'm starting at the beginning. We have that, again, I'm going to say it. What do I do with my hands?
Yeah.
And we've done all these amazing things, all these big projects, all this stuff, and you still get that feeling. So what I did for me, and I've described it to other people since, is something to really think about once you finish. And it's going to sound strange maybe to some, but I promise you it works. And so first of all, I sort of separated myself just a little bit, right? And I just needed to know, who am I?
Right.
Again, who am I? Not this position. Because it's a great thing what we do in that we have these certain positions in our community. It's fantastic. But once you separate, whether it's retirement or going another route, you need to remember who you are again. That goes back into, knowing how to talk, realizing you have all these skills, right? So I did that. It really worked for myself. One example is this part where it sounds a little strange is like, what do we do every day first thing in the morning? We brush our teeth. Who are you looking at when you do that? You're looking at yourself first thing in the morning, right? So I practice getting things out from those early days, maybe in Iraq and places like that. I practice saying a good, positive thing for this day, right?
Yeah.
Because you got to enjoy your day because it's already too late. It's already here, right?
Yeah.
So I would practice that. And little by little, I'm happier now. And that's what something I'm going to talk about in a minute. I'm happier now than I've ever been probably in my life, truly. And that's after all these experiences that a lot of us go through.
Yeah.
So that was part of it. And then you mentioned, it's just about January will be 3 years. And so there's a lot of things that we do throughout our career. And something that I'm bringing up and what you're talking about on LinkedIn is that, so in May, I said, you know what, maybe I should take care of this multi-times broken nose, right? And I said, okay. And to be honest with you, the VA in San Diego is amazing because of all the troops out here from Marines and us, and they've been just amazing. So I'll be honest with you guys, I haven't really used my TRICARE too much.
Really?
Daughter does, but like I haven't.
Yeah.
The VA here is incredible. So I went there, got a CT scan. Takes about 2 minutes, literally. I'm like, it's over? And she's like, yep. So then me and my old lady, we're going to go to lunch, right? And get in the car, phone call. It's the doctor. He says, hey, Roy, I think you have a brain tumor. And I'm like, wow, really? But I will tell you, because of the level of my happiness, and I swear to you guys on this, my level of happiness from hearing that news didn't change from the minute before to the minute after.
Really?
Truly. And so I said, wow, okay. Well, they told me it was going to take 2.5 months to just get an MRI, right? So I go, wow, that seems like too long.
Yeah.
And this is where the EOD characteristics come in, problem solving, right? So I call the VA again, and they're like, yeah, it'll take 2.5 months. And I said, guess when I went? The very next day.
Yeah.
Went the next day, I was on the elevator with one of the technicians. I was just talking to him a little bit as I've been practicing since getting out. And I say, hey, have a good day, bro. So I get down there, I'm checking in at the desk, and he's back there. He's one of the technicians for the MRI. He says, hey, get in here. We'll get you in between appointments. I'm not going to say that part, but paperwork got filled out very fast.
Yeah.
And so they do the MRI. It confirms it. So what would have taken me 2 months just to get the MRI, I had the surgery within 2.5 months.
Wow.
Right? It would have taken probably 6 months to get the surgery.
Yeah.
And finding out and digging into things as we do as EOD techs to solve problems, that also includes our own.
Yeah.
Something that sometimes we sort of forget, but we need to remember that part. So as you guys can see, I look a little bit like R, right? So my eyes, okay, it's getting better. So I got a little line up because the type of haircut I like. So I told the surgeons, this is another EOD thing. I said, if you're going to do something, there's going to be a scar. I want it to be a lineup. I told them 3 times, including the day of the surgery. And he did well. Although the strength in us, the hair's growing back on the scar liner, right? So
that's awesome.
So what had happened is I got a tumor right here, the size of a baseball. I kid you not.
Jeez.
And so I get in, I do the surgery. But even kind of an interesting story is we all put in things through the VA, right? And I was very late on that after I retired. I didn't want to think military anything.
Yeah.
So, I did certain things. Okay. And right after I found out about this, I signed up via, hey, I got this thing, a tumor, whatever. The doctor that I had, I go to see him, and he'd already, called me to talk that he had a brain tumor that couldn't be removed. It was incredible.
That's crazy.
And we talked about life and just the way he felt about family and everything. And the one thing that I've noticed throughout this whole process is just like we had done, a lot of us, right? And some will do in the future, is that we've disarmed bombs, moments that we could have been, as we always called it, pink mist, initial success, total failure, right? So that was very interesting. I saw his mood. So instead of the doctor talking to me about this and that, it ended up us talking as boys about family life, this and that. I said, enjoy every day. Enjoy every day. Because even in regular life, you don't know, right?
Right.
So then about 3 weeks before the actual surgery, and they were tripping out also because the surgeon was like, are you down to do this awake? Because it's the best technology available right now where they have a sensor so they know where to cut. I said, absolutely, let's do it. And it ended up only being a little bit of that. And then, so I see the anesthesiologist. She's just prepping me for the surgery. And I just see her a little bit, certain kind of way. And we start talking. She's got a brain tumor as well. And it's just very interesting. And the day of the surgery, the nurse comes in to see me. She's had 2.
Jeez.
3 different people. How does that happen, right?
Yeah.
But so there we are. I'm like, let's do it one last time. Hey, line up before we get in there, before you put me out, all this stuff. And then, so one thing I was thinking about this whole time leading up to the surgery was, I said, man, when I retired, what would be, and also we do things in our community every so often that, dive physical, for example. Mm-hmm. And it is what it is, what I'm going to say. But, we do neurals when we get on the surface. When do we ever check our neural, right?
Right, yeah.
And the reason I say this is because, as you guys know, there's been quite a few of these different folks getting these things that literally had no symptoms.
Yeah.
None. So I wouldn't have known had I not gone for the nose thing.
That's actually a question I was going to ask. Like, even thinking back, is there anything that you think might have you could attribute to the tumor?
So, and this is very, truthful and honest, is that for the longest time, the only thing I could say is that for a lot of things, I had no feeling of it. When we would go do devices, and this is just an example that we can understand.
Yeah.
I would have no feeling of, ooh, that could happen. Like I remember as a kid and growing up having this sort of like, you get those butterflies and I wouldn't get them for some things like at all. And I didn't think about this till after, they told me this and they asked me these questions. I was like, well, what could it be? Because no, I never noticed anything, do things with the kids, this and that. I would say in the last year though, before I found out that there were some memories that my girl would say, "You don't remember this?" And I was like, "Nah, I don't remember that I told you this." Right.
Yeah.
And I remember how it used to be. It was like on point. So that was one of the things. But the key thing is that it could be in different locations. And those studies that they did were incredible.
Yeah.
And I highly recommend also, like, I went through the VA for this process. It was my choice to say, okay, hey, insurance, I want to get a second opinion. But the MRI results that were so good. And here in San Diego, just for those folks who are out here on the West Coast, the VA out here is partnered with UCSD, who has some of the best surgeons around.
Yeah.
And so the biggest thing, I'd like to get the word out, and you guys to get the word out, and anybody that can help. I've heard from Hunter 7 Foundation, pretty quick, heard from them. They do a lot of amazing things, just so you guys know. So follow them if you don't already. It's incredible what they do. They try new treatments that are out there and help the service members get funded if they need to. And they've done some amazing things.
Yeah.
And, it's just the other thing is spread the word about, hey, how come we don't get this checked? Because we've seen so much. If we're about readiness, then we should be about complete readiness.
Yeah.
Because we've seen some brothers, notice. You never know when you're going to notice it.
Right.
You may notice it. They said that mine was at the point where I would have lost use of a lot of things. It was right on the brainstem. Right. And I didn't know this because I didn't feel nothing.
Right.
Had I not gone, I wouldn't know. And I'm working every day to get this eye better, right? Practice why I got the eye patch. They didn't tell me to. Part of it was like, but two, it's so I could put it on the strong eye to get that weak eye practicing. And that's one of the other things that that we've seen in different parts of our lives with the medical area, where they just kind of say, they're almost just hoping that you just listen to every part that they say instead of doing our research. That's another quality about EOD techs. We like to do our research. So I did. And there are a couple of times where I left them speechless, where I said, well, what about this? And it's very important so they can do more research as we've done research. So that's
it's something that, in very different circumstances, but what you notice too is, like, you go to the doctor for something, right? And just like us, right?
Right.
In our job, we don't know everything. And so you got to sometimes go like, hold on a minute. I know where to find that, and then you go and you look in the pub, or you go and ask the person. Yeah, that's why they have their other room, right? Because they go back there and they're like, what is that thing? So like doing our own research and bringing it up, then I would say the majority of doctors want to get people better, right?
Absolutely.
And so if you bring them something that you found out, and you're like, hey, like, I'm not willing to just accept that this not great answer is the answer that I have to live with. I found out some information. What can you tell me about that?
Absolutely. So one thing that I found out very recently, so about 4 years ago, I started eating keto style.
Yeah.
And so that's, minimizing carbs and sugars, which I never liked sugar anyway, and upping fats. For the most part, is your biggest intake. And I've changed more towards the carnivore side, but it's still sort of the same dynamic, right? Well, something very interesting that I found out as doing my research, which is another just interesting thing that I'd been doing this for a minute. And the doctor did mention that it looked like it had kind of been holding fast for a little bit, which I found very interesting, the tumor. And is that this, the worst case is called glioblastoma, okay? And so there's not long. We've had different brothers through all communities get this thing. It's been very common for whatever reason in military members as of late who are veterans of these different combats and multiple deployments, right?
Yeah.
And the interesting about this case is that this guy in 2014 was diagnosed with this, and they gave him about 8 to 10 months. Well, he immediately changed his diet to get rid of carbohydrates and sugars because, and the only reason I bring this up is just to give it some thought. Tumors and cancerous cells, right? Some are benign, some are cancerous, right? Mm-hmm. They consume glucose. Carbohydrates, even if we're working out like crazy, and I know there's a lot of, I'm just putting it out there because these bad things, they feed on glucose.
Yeah.
And so when this guy switched immediately, he went from 8 to, 16 months max to still being with us today.
Yeah.
10 years with the worst case scenario that, or best case scenario was 16 months, 10 years. What does that tell you all? So, and I'm sure that any one of you would say the same things to the doc. I just we were just talking, and I had a little conversation with some of my doctors yesterday. They wanted me to do this toxic stuff right away, and I kind of brought it up to them. One is like, what type of foods do you guys give to people in the hospital when they're recovering from something? You're saying, don't do this. I said, just like we do in the community and in the military. I said, why don't you guys be leaders and open your mouth and change that?
Yeah.
Straight up. And I also said, what do these types of cells consume? And they told me. And I said, well, I'm doing that. So tell me which one is better, this toxic stuff or this? And I gave them that case of a couple of folks that have done it, and they're studying it around the world. So long story short, just bringing it up, something to think about.
Yeah.
Especially because so many of us have been getting these things. Number one, CT scan. If you're a veteran, go see the VA. They'll do it.
Yeah.
Or sinus stuff, or just even just mention it. It's very important. And then the biggest thing that I'm looking to do is finding a way to get this on our dive physical.
Yeah.
And then from there, expanding elsewhere, because it's very important. I'm telling you, you won't get pain when it first appears. You just won't.
Yeah.
Later on, maybe. And that's why it's so important.
And that's actually a really good point, something to consider, because half the time, even if we have pain, we're like, oh, the pain will go away.
That's right.
Like, oh, that's not a big deal. These constant headaches, I'm gonna change this little thing, and then it'll be fine.
Yeah.
But then if it's something that presents and you don't have symptoms for it, like you have to do exactly what you're saying, right? We've had too many people that have had different cancers, different tumors. And by the time we find out, because it's, you said you went in to get your nose checked, right? Yeah. And that's how you find out. When we're finding out through essentially happenstance, we need to put something in place where it's a semi-consistent check to see, hey, we have a baseline. Is the baseline the same, or is something changing, right?
Absolutely.
Because if that's the thing that gets me the most, because I think about all the problems that I have, and I'm like, there's something I can see, and we tend to deal with the pain or the issue that we have, thinking that if I do this, that, or the other, it'll go away. And then eventually it just gets worse and worse. And then we're like, okay, I guess I'll go get it checked. But when it's something that's not even there, we got to put something in place, because we're just, honestly, we look at us, the majority of us, we don't like going for things that we know we need to go for.
Absolutely.
If it's in place and it's, hey, we, like you said, we're supposed to be taking care of our brothers and sisters, right? Let's put something in place that doesn't take that long and can literally save lives.
Literally save lives. And you're exactly correct on the statement where you go, I know I have this thing, but don't do it, right? I had mentioned it to the wonderful woman of my life, Virginia, that, hey, I'm going to get this fixed like a year ago.
Yeah.
And she's like, baby, aren't you going to get that looked at? Aren't you going to get that looked at? And I said, you know what, babe, you're right. Made the appointment, found this out. It's not by pure chance. It's one of them things.
Yeah.
And so I really and I'm not anybody, but I call on all of us as brothers and sisters to let's find a way to get this added. I think the dive physical would be a great way for communities, not just ours,
right?
That have that, so it can be a starting point, right? Because it's definitely needed. Like you said, we've had lots of cases, and the sooner we find out, the better.
Absolutely.
And what else does that do, right? Let's be real. Increases readiness.
Yeah.
It just does. And I know that's something that gets looked at in military operations. It just is. I understand. But it also helps family health, which also does what? Helps readiness.
Yep.
So it's very important to know these things, because I will tell you guys, with specifically brain tumors that we found so common lately, the sooner the better. If they find it and it's a little bitty thing, boop, out, no more problems. Mine was the size of a baseball, as I stated, literally the size of a baseball.
Yeah.
So it's something to look at. there's something I'm working on right now as well for the homes. We got a company working on some things with a couple prior EOD techs and some other guys called Zeta Tech, and it's great. But this has really interested me because it's just a simple topic that I'm going to bring up because of recent events. It's not only certain things that we use and places that we go, but if you think about it, back in the day for old guys like me, not every house had Wi-Fi. Not everybody had a cell phone, but now everybody does. And I don't know if you guys know this, and I know we study this a lot in different parts of our career field, but France, 6 days ago today, just banned a certain device, made by Apple, the iPhone 12, because it puts out too much radiation. Even though it's a different type, right?
Yeah.
It still does damage over time if you're thinking 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 plus Wi-Fi. Just wanted to put that out.
Yeah.
Because a couple years ago after retirement, I was like, you know what? I should probably put this thing. Everybody's home. Okay. Things going airplane mode. Everything's going to the kitchen, as you guys understand different things. But just something to think about. Just want everybody to think about this because for whatever reason, it's not only EOD techs across the country, across the world. The spike in tumors started just after 1940, interesting enough. And it's a straight up line almost on the graph as the years pass. And that has a lot to do with what I talked about earlier a little bit in glucose and sugar. Just something to think about.
That's not good for me because you said you weren't a big sweets person, dude. That is absolutely my bias, and I try and I know it's not good for me, right? Even if you just look at the waistline, but I have to really work at it. There's certain things that I can just not even worry about, but if I'm the type of person, and I know this about me, so I can counter it, right? But if I have sweets in the house, if it's closed, I can be okay. If I open it, it's over. It's over. And I know that about me. And so literally sitting here and it just adds one more piece of ammunition for why I need to get myself under control, help myself out for potential future things.
No, you know what, Jared? It's very interesting that last part you said because, there are times to do this and that. And about the time I retired, I also said, I only drank tequila. Guys that know me know I drank tequila with water, that was just my thing. And I started thinking, I said, because I was retired and had a little of the hands going on, I was like, why do I need to do this, right? Why do I need to do this? So I practiced. It was a week. I was going to go, okay. And I realized I was like, man, we went out that weekend. I said, I had a lot of fun. I even sang. I never sang. And then another week and another week. And just for me, I'm not saying do it. I'm just saying, man, post this crazy stuff that a lot of us have done. I felt and still feel, even after all this crazy news and all this stuff, incredible.
Yeah.
Incredible. Because for whatever reason, it would bring back certain thoughts and certain things I don't know why. And then once I stopped, it's just being true. That thing I told you guys about the mirror.
Yeah.
Instead of it coming out in certain instances, it would come out on my own saying, you know what, I'm going to say this to myself and work on it and let it out. Right. And it worked amazingly because truly, even with all this crazy stuff going on, I feel better than ever.
Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
You mentioned the mirror trick. I didn't think of it in that terms, even though two things I'll say, personal experience wise. One, I was pretty shy when I was younger, and I was not confident, right? And in my late teens and early to mid 20s, literally I used to call it lying to myself, and I would lie to myself and just tell myself I am X, Y, or Z, right? A positive thing, just to try and convince myself to go out and, talk to girls or whatever, But on the flip side, one of the things I've noticed in myself specifically, and I think, I'm not going to say that it's true for others, but as I objectively look at others, I think it is. When I get in those spots where things aren't going right, I'm getting arguably depressed. the more I think about the negative portion of it, right? The reason why I'm upset, the reason why I don't feel good about myself or the circumstance, the more I think about it, the more I see the other negative things, right?
That's right.
And eventually, and I've noticed it in myself several times, and I've never gotten, suicidal portion,
Right.
but I have gotten to the point where I just want to shut everything out.
Yeah.
I'm overwhelmed.
Right.
I'm like, I don't know how to deal with things. And luckily, every time I've gotten like really far down, it's like that saying that they always say, right? Like you're getting further down the black hole and the light's getting less and less.
That's right.
And I feel like, well, I know as I've gotten there, what I've consciously made the decision to do that's pulled me out is like, I look at that little tiny bit of light and I'm like, okay, well that little light is a positive thing, right? And I'm gonna start focusing on the positive. And when you're far down, there might be only one or two positive things that you can see.
That's right.
But then that start climbing the ladder, and then you start focusing on, okay, well, I've got my wife or my girlfriend or my kids or my friends or, like my health or, even on the health, because the older we get, the harder it is to look at that. But
Very true.
Like I may not have this old version of the health, but I can still walk around.
That's
I can
right.
still do push-ups. I can
That's right.
still, whatever. And the more you focus on the positive side, which is the morning, brush your teeth, which reminds me, I got to brush my teeth every morning now. But you say that positive thing and yeah, it makes 100% sense that would start to build your day up.
Yeah. It's incredible because all of us EOD techs or prior EOD techs, right? I'm civilian now. Is what do we do in training? Repetition, repetition, repetition. Why do we do it? So then when we're not even really thinking about it, we're doing it, right?
Yeah.
So along with the lines of what we're talking about is what I found is that sort of ties into my old life.
Yeah.
As a civilian now, that repetition, right? So I wake up and I mean it. I know it sounds weird to some, but like you're already there. And this is kind of deep, you know what I mean? But like, so when we've all brushed our teeth our whole life, right? You can see yourself in the mirror, but we're really not looking at ourselves in the mirror, okay? Once we start practicing that, because there ain't nobody else. You can talk to everybody else. This is a great conversation. I love it. Love talking to all you guys about this stuff. But until you look yourself in the eyes and you say some of these things and you realize, you know what? I'm already here today. That's one positive, right? As we all know, we've lost brothers in combat and other things, family members. It's important to wake up and know that. Even in that darkest hole, go, wait a second. Wait a second. I'm here.
Yep.
What can I do today? What can I do? And we're not going to finish the problem completely today. Right. Just like this thing we're working on and getting this thing on the diaphysical. Today, we're not going to finish it, but we ain't stopping.
Yeah.
Right? So that the positive in parts in life, and like in this case where we're talking about, hey, let's get this CT scan on the diaphysical, is that, hey, this is what I can do today. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do the most I can today.
Yeah.
And then tomorrow, oh, right on. I'm here. What am I gonna do today? Even with the negative stuff, just like we do in combat, just like we do at the units, just like we do with our team members, we gotta make sure that we do that with ourselves.
Yeah.
It's very important.
Yeah. I was thinking about the pulling ourselves up, keeping ourselves at a level, and I know sometimes we talk about sometimes the positive thing can be, well, I'm going to do it for somebody else, right?
Very true.
And that is good, but I think eventually we need to get to where we're doing it for ourselves. Because I know when I look at people, right, I don't necessarily want someone to do it for me.
Very true.
I want them to get better, to get happier, to get whatever,
Absolutely.
to get more in shape. I want them to do it for them, like ultimately, because that's where it's going to be long-term sustainable. You may need to look at it and be like, hey, my family needs me, so I'm going to do it for them. That's going to get me out, but eventually turn it into like find that reason for you to continue on.
That is exactly what you said. That's a great point, is what I feel. So my kids, so a lot of us have kids and stuff, and I'm going to share this with you guys where they said, just randomly, I remember my son turned to me and he goes, my middle son, he goes, Dad, you're so happy. I love seeing you like this.
That's awesome.
And well, how did that start? Exactly what you're saying, Jared. Like, usually we look at this as a reason or this as a reason that's external, because that is in our nature as EOD.
Yeah.
Because what do? Right? We all know this. But when you do this, you're working truly on the problem. The ultimate problem is, and I don't mean it in such a bad way, but the ultimate, thing we got to work on, because it affects everything else.
Yeah.
Your career, your family, everything. You got to start with you.
Yep.
And it's a daily thing. It ain't I did this. It just ain't. As we explain when we're on platoons and we're training or we're at the training, whatever, like, we don't just say, oh, yeah, we did that. We won't do that for another, It's very important. It's incredible. And those comments that my kids made, even my little tiny daughter, like, made my, like, day, not enough, life. Going,
Yeah.
wow. I never understood just what Jared said, that, like, hey, wait a second. Let me look at myself on a personal level. You ain't never got to tell nobody what you say when you look in the mirror. That's for you. I am a man of faith. I'm not a religious man, but I'm a man of faith, right? And so I feel that unless we do them, it just sort of is. We have to do things, whether that's family stuff, career stuff, personal stuff. It ain't going to start just by itself.
Right.
And many things, obviously, we need to do with a group. That's why I love the EOD community so much. Yeah. It was a group of brothers. You felt great. You synced up. It was good. In the military in general, we all met folks in different services, different types of units, and as we were doing things, we did them. It was a family type of feeling.
Yeah, yeah. There's something about it's good to get away and be by yourself. For me, one of the most frustrating things about being out of shape right now is where I was the calmest, not necessarily the happiest, but the calmest and like even keeled was when I was running a lot. For me, I would go out and run and I could do a couple things. I would have conversations with just myself, like talking about myself, trying to like, man, this does sound weird saying it out loud. So, but I don't care. 'Cause it's true, awesome. I would try to work through my own issues out there. Right.
That's right.
And then the other thing I could do is, especially when I was in the Navy, early on in my career, and, I had a chief or a senior chief that was yelling at me because, as I know now, I was actually pretty terrible, but back then I was like, obviously the best thing in the world. But then I could have a conversation with them that wouldn't actually get me in trouble because they weren't actually there. And, weird, I could win that conversation. Yeah. So I would work through a lot of the issues, but like spending some time with yourself is good, but it's also good to then get with other people and just share, and the people that you're comfortable with too. So you can have like conversations that are real, where you can actually say what you're really thinking. And
that is it right there. You're so right. Yeah. Those of you guys that knew me like right before retirement, or a lot of the times, deployment, super shape, after deployment, out of shape. Yeah. So
it's most of us. So
as I was retiring and I shifted the way I ate and I started doing exactly what you're saying, is like, I'd go to the gym minimum 5 days a week. And for each person perfects what works for them. Right. And some days I'd be there for an hour and some change. Some days I'd be there for 30 minutes, just kind of depended. Right. But the first month that I changed my mentality, and there is something to this where, you're like, hey, I got no reason not to be happy. I'm here today, And so that first month I changed, how I ate, how my mentality was. And I truly believe it was more my mentality than anything else. And obviously the way I ate, but I dropped 27 pounds in a month. Because, COVID was going on. So that's the excuse I'm giving for eating all that, exactly. all that stuff, but couldn't go anywhere. Right. So, but yeah, in a month. And that I'm sure that it had to do with that mentality. And I know that a lot of us brothers and sisters go through these times. We know this. And just something that we're throwing out there just to practice and see how it goes. It's quite interesting. You'll see.
Yeah. Another thing thinking about, I mentioned at the beginning, and the podcast has been really good for me on this, because I've not been the type of person that really reaches out like much at all, even if I want to, right? I'll convince myself of every excuse in the world. I'll look at my phone and be like, man, I haven't talked to this person in a while. I should call him, but I've only got 30 minutes until I get home, you know, and the conversation is going to be 45 plus, and it'll just be weird and whatever, all excuses in the world. But, you know, reaching out to you, I was like, oh, you know, I'm not sure. And maybe I don't know if he would want to. Just freaking reach out to people. Like, you know, and you don't have to like, it's interesting because the way we think we're going to come across often is not the way we come across. We think we're going to be like, oh, he's going to think I'm trying to get something from him. I'm being a bird. No, most of us, like, because I think of it when somebody reaches out to me and I'm like, oh, dude, I'm so glad that person's calling. Like, hey, I haven't talked to you in a year. You know, what's going on, man?
Oh, that reminds me of something. That's fantastic.
But yeah, I think it's, you know, just reach out. Like it's good, whether you know the person or not too. Like they're another EOD tech. Like, just reach out, say hi.
That's right.
It's
it's been just incredible. I pretty much was coming out of being asked, you know, sleeping for a while during the surgery, coming out of it in my room. And I saw dudes from like from a dive school class, you know what I mean? Like in person. And I was like, what are you guys doing? And it just like, wow, it was just one of them feelings. And it shows our true familyhood, if you will, that we have. And I've been retired for almost 3 years. It's just incredible. It was incredible. Seeing, you know, Steve Cho, Drew Ferguson, just right there. I was like, well, what are you guys doing here?
Yeah.
I didn't say, who are you guys? But but it was just fantastic. And I was able to discuss with them what we're talking about mainly here is getting this thing on the dive physical is where we think it would, you know, be best. But it's just one of them things. It's just our community is incredible. And there's some things that we do ourselves that are much needed. But yeah, we got to reach out to each other on all kinds of topics. And if we're in leadership spots, hey, let's make sure that our folks are good across the board, not solely on their, you know, PQS at the job site, but also their PQS as a family man, as a husband, as a father, those kinds of things, and just discuss. Yeah. Nothing major, just quick discussions, and realize that I think that's very beneficial for readiness as well. Very beneficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And it also like lets people know that you actually care about them.
That's right.
You know, that you're not just, because there is the part of the Navy where it is, what can you do for the Navy, right? The Navy needs something from you. What can you do for the Navy? That's there. That's a fact.
Yes.
But you're not going to get as much out of people if you don't care about them and like actually care about them, not just, you know, on paper. But also it provides that bond where then you long term you have people that you can reach out to.
That's right. Very much so. Experience, you know, for hey, maybe they went up a level, maybe they're taking over a team, being able to call folks. I mean, one of my absolute favorite things that I did not think was going to happen, because I'll be very honest with you guys, I don't think I ever called anybody after they retired. Maybe that was bad, but I didn't. And some of the boys from my different platoons who are now, you know, taking over teams, they give me calls about certain things. It's so fantastic to talk about.
Yeah.
As I'm living, you know, my civilian life and showing them civilian terms. 10 a.m. instead of 10:00.
Right.
You know, call me at 8 o'clock.
I'm still not sure what you mean by 10 a.m. No, it's oh darn. I've got it. It's in there. It's somewhere.
Yeah. That should be me.
I know. Oh, that's funny. Darn. It was there and then it's gone. So it was something about getting. Oh no. This is what I would say. You know, I know you've got like multiple businesses and multiple things that you're working on, right? And that you've got going on, and but it's. You know, if you want to share anything about those, I'd love to hear it. And then the second piece though is, you know, we've been talking a little bit before this, but one of the things that's awesome, you know, hearing you talk about all those things is with everything that you got going on, really the focus is on one, like like legitimate happiness and where that happiness comes from, and you and your family and your kids. Like that's awesome. Cause I think so many times it's so easy, especially as, people that were drawn to this type of community, to get focused on a project or a new business or, this or that or whatever, and dive into that. And that brings us happiness. But at some point that kind of like fades away. Sure. Whereas if we're doing that so that we can spend the time with our family and our kids and our close friends, that's where our long-term happiness is going to be.
So true. So that was honestly my biggest motivator once I retired. And I want to say it would be the same when somebody gets out, if they decide to do that, right? Was how can I, missing births of kids, and a lot of us have gone through that, or missing this, birthdays, you name it, right? So finally got them there, got them next to you. My oldest, believe it or not, he's 29 years old. Yeah. And I had a good high school. But so the thing about that is being there for family events, for holidays, finally. And so it was interesting. I was still kind of going through that, what do I do with my hands thing, because it was like only EOD. And then little by little, I started learning, wait a second, started translating and going, that's interesting that all those things I used to do, I just got to translate them into what could I do now. And a really good friend of mine named Steve, he called me one day. He says, I know him about, close to 10 years now. He says, hey, meet me for lunch. And he owns a custom car shop that's been, very successful. Some of you guys might have seen me post some of those cars. Just incredible. However, there was some, he asked me to help him out with just some of the stuff, like with the number stuff. And he's a great friend of mine, great, like a brother. And so I said, yeah, sure, man. And so it was, I started to put my hands down, because it was just like in our community. Yeah. We do a lot of numbers in our community. We problem solve. I would say that's the key. EOD folks, during and after, find things you can problem solve. Yeah. And that's why I highly recommend, if you got something you think you can do, if you just look around and you were to say, let's just pretend you got no money coming in, problem solve it. And you will, because there's folks that go, how did you think of that? From the outside, not our brotherhood, sisterhood, but like from the outside, they go, how'd you do that? And it's like we were talking about earlier, a lot of times we start at the back end going, if it's a product or whatever, you look at it like, do people even, will they buy that? Will they click the button once it's on the website and everything? Would I? Or you, right? I don't think so. You know what I mean? So nope, scrap that. Or price list, things like that. We're good at doing research and putting it in a PowerPoint. Yeah. Right? I wonder where we got those from. But so it's been pretty incredible to see those skills and that sort of confidence in certain things that we have, whether that was a brief in combat zone, a brief back home, talking to the team. That's been the most incredible part. And that's where I mentioned earlier, like you're talking to somebody, for a business deal or even an interview for something, just realize you've done things like that and greater because of those risk of life. Yeah. Just super interesting. It's been amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. This is, it's good to hear, guys that are, it's crazy to hear all the different types of things people are doing. And it's good to hear all of them, because I know for me it does, and I'm sure for most people listening, right? It lets you know, like, okay, when you get out, if you're not already out, that there's still things that you can do that provide satisfaction, that are challenging, because that's what a lot of us want. Right. We want challenging things, and then that we're not pigeonholed into like, okay, because I was an EOD tech, well, I have to do this one thing.
That's right.
And
absolutely.
And it's kind of a freeing thing. Another thing this podcast has done for me, and I'm hoping that, it's doing it for some other people, is, even if you just got in, right? Mm-hmm. Start looking at that long term. Yes, like, look at, absolutely. Okay, you're starting to see, the different things that people are doing when they get out. Like, maybe test those while you're in.
That's right.
That's something that I kind of did. I spent a lot of money testing things but photography and just a bunch of different things that I've tried. And I'm like, well, while I have this steady paycheck, let me get into this, see if it's a hobby, see if it's something that I can turn into a business, when I get out. Like,
that is so right.
Give yourself some options.
Yep.
And
no, you're on point with that. Definitely on point. And if we all think all the way back to EOD school, in EOD, right, especially Navy EOD, but all EOD, is how many divisions were there, right? Yeah. All kinds of subjects, all kinds of topics. And then once you get out, what's stopping you from doing any more? Why do they teach those of us that become EOD and back when we're at the units? Why do we go over so many different things?
Yeah.
Because you can.
Yep.
You can. And then getting out is the same thing. Just leave your hands up a little bit and then start putting them down.
Yeah.
Like Jared's saying, focus on something, practice while you're in, take a look at it. It's incredible.
Yeah. And that word that you keep mentioning, translate, like maybe you're not sure how to translate it. There are organizations that can help you with that. The INSOF Foundation has some people with it. There's other foundations that, you can go and reach out to and say, hey, I did this job in the military.
That's right.
Like, what does that mean on the outside? That's and then something that actually is just got brought up. One of the guys at work is transitioning out right now. And there are some things that we are very good at.
Yes.
But we need a certification on the outside. And
good point.
Our military version, people on the outside don't understand it.
Correct.
And that's where the translate comes in.
Yep.
Figure out what that civilian cert is, and then there's programs that literally will pay for the test for that cert.
That is right. I'm actually starting something. Those around me that are close here in San Diego know about it, and we'll get together more on it. It's called Battle to Business.
Okay.
So that's just what it's called. Nice. And the reason is because of everything that we're talking about, and a lot of us are going to go through exactly what we're talking about. Let's learn that other language, right?
Yeah.
Let's learn that other language. And that's what it's going to do. It's generally going to take experiences from different folks all over that have our background from our community that said, hey, wait a second. How did you translate? And to help folks out, hey, this is what I'd like to do, but my hands are still up. What do I do? And to work on that translation. That's it.
Yeah. That's awesome. And that's where, it comes into that. Just reach out.
Yep.
There's people that have figured these things out. There's figured that in different sectors that have figured out what the translation is.
Yes.
Just reach out.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
It makes me feel good just thinking about when that happened. I swear to you guys, and I know there's a lot of folks before us that felt that, and it's just a good thing. I also have noticed a lot of times, not always, but a lot of times. So I remember I was eating somewhere and saw somebody, and from our community, our post community, and I was like, man, like I see him, he's doing something else, but just kind of had a vibe about him, like just like we were talking about earlier, it's hard to let go. And I'm not saying we have to, we just have to sort of practice it. And I just highly recommend if we go something that's near and this goes for all communities, not just ours.
Yeah,
it's almost like a lot of times one day doing this or stuff in our community, the next day doing something, it's related. So we're still sort of stuck to it. And that's not a bad thing. But we also have to be working on ourselves and understanding, hey, I'm doing something different with the community, but it's something different.
Yeah.
And to vent a little bit and just be good. And because it's interesting. I have really good friends and they're like, man, I just feel like I'm doing the same thing. And it's okay to work on yourself.
Yeah.
It really is. It really is.
Yeah, absolutely. That is, it's very important. I know, just being in for any amount of time, but especially if you're, getting that 10, 15, 20 plus
for
years, sometimes it's hard to separate you from what you're doing, but it's a huge portion of your life, but it's not who you are.
Exactly.
And
absolutely.
And it can be weird.
Yeah, it sure can.
But,
it sure can. But that is an excellent point.
Yeah.
It can be hard. We're used to it. But we are also used to doing very difficult things.
Yes.
Talking to folks in our community, very difficult things. And I would honestly say, this is just my opinion, of course, but the most difficult thing would be to look at ourselves and make sure that what we're doing, we're happy about. It's just the truth. And once we go to the other side, right, it's a very important thing. And I think for most of us, and we all can think about this as we're talking about this, that's probably the most difficult thing to do. Is we love helping people and making them feel, better and safer and everything like that. But we got to make ourselves feel safer too.
Yeah.
We just got to. Every way possible.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. And I know, and it's not just for it. Literally, people in general.
Right.
The hardest thing for people to do is to look at themselves because we're always afraid that, are we going to see something bad?
That's right. You're right.
And you know what? You might. If you do, perfect time to start working on that.
That's right. That's where we go. Hey, there's that light up there.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? That's excellent. No, you're right. You're on point. Exactly. Very, very true. Difficult, but everything, when we're talking to our community right now, everything that we've done since the moment we decided to get into this community, at that time when we were at dive school, it's like, oh my God, I hope I make it through pool week and all that stuff. And you do. And then you go to school and all that stuff. And then you're at the mobile units. All of it seemed hard.
Yeah.
Same thing like for the stuff that's going on. And I know a lot of us share that sort of feeling. And that's why I bring it up, is because there was a lot of years where it felt that certain way. You know what I mean? And we don't talk about it. We just don't. But like we're discussing here, hey, you got brothers and sisters out there to help. And more than anything, you got somebody you see in the mirror every single day that you should trust.
Yeah.
That you should trust. And trust me, it helps.
I like it. Is there anything that you want to like kind of share or leave with the community?
The biggest thing is, my main focus, honestly, is obviously a lot of stuff has changed in my life very recently.
Yeah.
Including, and this is, doctors in some cases are kind of going, why are you doing this? Right. And I tell them, just like you guys already know each other, I said, yeah, I told you what I used to do and who I used to do it with. Okay. So we're problem solvers, right? So before I went into the surgery, I didn't have any symptoms, including having to wear an eye patch because my eyes like slowly working itself back. And, sometimes they say, ooh, this is how it looks or whatever. And then they see people like us and I go, well, I'm going to work on it, and internally and externally, you'll see.
Yeah.
Right. And so I've done a lot of work based, honestly, on what I learned through our job as our community. And just like in other things that we all do in the hospital, a couple days after, there was days where, interestingly enough, I talk a lot now. I didn't used to. I used to be pretty shy.
Yeah.
And there was a couple days in the middle of that 8 days that I was there, and some of the folks that visited know this, is where I knew exactly what I wanted to tell you or tell them, and I couldn't say it. It was very interesting because the brain works in an interesting way. I speak two languages, Spanish and English, and they were crisscrossing. I literally was watching an 80s movie, and the music that was playing was not translated. It was in English. And I heard the lady singing in Spanish.
Really?
And the doctors are like, what? So this tells you that they don't know everything. They know a lot, but they don't know everything. And so the interesting thing is that number one, more than anything, is I wanted to get more of this word out about, let's get that CT scan that takes 2 minutes onto the dive physical. If we need to get some, let's get some.
Yeah.
That was the main thing. I want us to all spread that word because you don't feel these things, okay? You just don't. But secondly, is that I had this surgery done, working on getting that, wearing a freaking eye patch now, and it hasn't changed nothing. Why? Because when I get up in the morning, what do I still do? There's two ways to go about things in life. Number one is, if it's not positive, to regress, right? The other way is, like I said earlier, you're already in today. It's already too late. Make what you want out of it.
Yeah.
And what I'm making out of it is, one, I want to help my brothers and sisters, and I want to help myself. I want to help my family. So that's the main reason for this. And every single day, I ain't gonna lie to you, I am happy every single day. One less eye and a little lighter in the head, right? But hey, it's all good. I happened to not use that part before, apparently. All right. So love you guys. You guys are great. And thank you, Jared, for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I really appreciate you coming on. It's I just love your spirit, your you know, everything that you got, man. Like just met you know, in person today, and like it's awesome, man. I'm super pumped.
Right on.
Yeah, really appreciate it.
No, I appreciate it as well. It's been fantastic.
Awesome.
All right.
Thank you for listening to the Echo Oscar Delta podcast, where we talk to Navy EOD techs and hear the stories that they want to share.